All right. Hi, fifth graders. I am super excited to be actually recording a lesson for you today. Today we are going to be talking about numerical patterns and coordinate planes. Now, that's a really fancy title, and pretty much all that means is we're going to continue talking about graphs, just like we've been doing for the past week and a half now. And numerical patterns means the number patterns we see on the graphs. So last week we talked all about how to plot points on a graph and how to read the coordinates that the graph is giving you. And now we're going to be talking about this week and next week how to use tables to make graphs and how to recognize the patterns that are happening inside those tables. All right, so our learning target for today is I can generate two numerical patterns using given rules and identify relationships between corresponding terms. So that's the table part of this. That means that when we are looking at a table, you can look at the patterns going on between the numbers and determine what rule is happening. And the rule can be as simple as add 1 each time or multiply by 2 each time. It doesn't have to be tricky, all right? It's just a pattern. And the second part of our learning target is I can form ordered pairs consisting of corresponding terms from the two patterns and graph the ordered pairs on the coordinate plane. So that means that once we have figured out what the rule is or the pattern is, then we can finish the table, which means we can keep creating the pattern, and then we can make an ordered pair, which is the coordinate that we put on the graph, and we plot the point. All right. So since we're not really in a classroom, we can't think, pair, share, but you can definitely think. So I want you to be thinking. So in your head, you're going to be thinking about this table, and the following table shows how many songs Ella downloads each week. How many songs will she download in week 5? So we've got a table here. On the right side, it has week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. And on the left side, we have on the right side, I mean, we have songs, and we have 4 songs in week 1. We have 9 songs in week 2, 14 songs in week 3, and 19 songs in week 4. Now we are trying to figure out how many songs will she download in week 5. I want you to be thinking in your head and looking at this table. What pattern do you see here? What pattern is going on with the weeks? What pattern is going on with the songs? I know that when I look at this, I see that the weeks go up +1. 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, and 3 plus 1 is 4. So we just add 1 each time. We're not skipping any weeks or anything. And then when I look at the songs, I see we go from 4 to 9. Now, if I just want to keep with the addition, that's 4 plus 5 is 9. And then we go from 9 to 14. Well, now I wonder, is 9 plus 5 14? Yeah, that is. And then 14 plus 19, or not 14 to 19, so 14 plus 5, that would be 19. So my rules would be +1 for each week and +5 for the songs for each week. So how many songs will she have in week 5 if we added a nice row to our table here? It would say 5 for week 5. How many songs? That would be 19 plus 5. That means that Ella would download 24 songs in week 5. All right. So the numbers in this table are called terms. So that means week 1 is a term. That means 4 songs is a term. That means 24 songs is a term. They're all called terms. The terms create a sequence. So the sequence is basically just like when we were doing chronological order, it's the order of events. Week 1, she bought 4 songs or downloaded 4 songs. Week 2, she downloaded 9 songs, and so on. All right, so did I skip something here? I did not. Okay, so for numerical patterns, we're going to look at this set of numbers here. We go 3, 7, 11, 15, and 19. What is the rule for this sequence of terms? I want you to look at that list of numbers and see if you can figure out the pattern in your head. I'm going to give you a few seconds to think. I'm thinking I'm going to start easy with addition. 3 plus what equals 7? And then see if I can add the same number to 7 to get 11. All right. Let's see. The rule is to add 4. If you figured out that it was add 4, give yourself a pat on the back. That's awesome. When we figured that out, it was just like I said. 3 plus 4 is 7. And then I'm going to try the same rule again. 7 plus 4, that's 11. It works. And then 11 plus 4 is 15. So the pattern keeps going. And then 15 plus 4 gets us 19. The pattern works. The rule is then to add 4 every time. So that means that if I wanted to find, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms right now in our pattern. If I wanted to find the 89th term, I would just keep adding 4 over and over again until I got to the 89th term. Or I could multiply 4 times 89 because I want to get to 89, right? And then add 3 at the very end because 3 is our first term, and that would be our 89th term. So that's how getting to know these patterns can really help us, is if we have a tricky question like that. All right, here's another pattern to look at. We go 100, 121, 141, 161, and 181. What is the rule for this sequence of terms? Same idea as last time. Start small, start with addition. If addition doesn't work, maybe move on to multiplication. I'm thinking in my head, 101 plus what gets me 121? I think I see a pretty simple pattern here once I uncover a couple little things. The rule is to add 20. Did you figure out it was to add 20? I'm pretty sure you did. As soon as I saw that the ones place stayed the same and the hundreds place stayed the same and that the tens place was the only thing changing, I knew it was going to be a pretty simple pattern to figure out, or a pretty quick one to figure out. So come on, there we go. So 101 plus 20 is 121. And then it's just like last time where you just keep going. All right. Here's a last pattern to figure out. Our pattern goes 1, 4, 16, 64, and 256. What is the rule for this sequence of terms? This is a tricky one. I'm going to give you some think time. And I'm going to give you a clue. It's not as simple as the first two. All right, I'm going to give you another clue now, because if you're still sitting and staring and you're still not sure, I'm going to give you another clue. If you're working and you're testing a clue that you have in your head right now, pause me. Don't let me spoil it, okay? But what I would do is I would think 1 times what equals 4? 1 times what equals 4? 4, right? Well, then 4 times 4 equals 16, right? So then this is where it gets tricky because my mental math or my immediate knowing, my math facts, I don't know what 16 times 4 is off the top of my head. But if I do some quick partial products, I know that 4 times 10 is 40. And 6 times 4 is 24. And 40 plus 24 would get me 64. All right. So let's see here. The rule is just to multiply by 4. So a little bit trickier than the last two, which were addition, right? This one looked a little silly because it went from 16 to 64, and then it went from 64 to 256. That's a big jump. But if you're multiplying, then that means you're making equal groups of the same number, and 4 equal groups of 64 is definitely going to get us into the 100 or 200s, right? So what about this one? What is the rule for this sequence of terms? And I'm going to give you a minute to look it over. All right. So do you think you have the rule for this sequence of terms in your head? Have you figured out what is going on here? We go from 2 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 22, and then 22 to 23. I'm going to give you a few more seconds to think on that, but I'm going to tell you where I start. I started and I saw that 2 times 2 is 4, right? This is a trickier one. I'm going to give you a little bit more time to think on it. Don't be afraid to write things down. You don't have to keep it all in your head. Sometimes when the pattern is a little bit trickier like this one, it's smart to write it down and play with the numbers. All right, I'm going to move on, but if you are determined to figure this out before I tell you, pause me so I don't ruin your learning opportunity, okay? Okay, so the rule, WOZA, is to multiply by 2 and then add 1. What? That is some craziness. Now, I don't know what's going on the screen right now, but we'll talk about it in a second. So the first thing to notice that I told us about is that 2 times 2 is 4. That was the first thing I saw after I read the numbers out loud. And then 4 plus 1 is 5. So we've got 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. And the rule is to multiply by 2 and then add 1. It's a two-step rule. So we know that this entire sequence in our terms, so the entire order of events here, 2, 4, 5, is the rule. Our rule is that you multiply the first term by 2, and then you add 1 to the term you get after multiplying by 2. So let's see if that pattern continues. 5 times 2 is 10. That works. 10 plus 1, that's 11. So there's a whole, you can't see when I point. There's a whole other rule here. All right. And then 11 times 2, that's 22. And 22 plus 1 is 23. So there is our rule for this sequence of terms. All right. So how can we use our knowledge of numerical patterns to graph ordered pairs? Because if we remember back to our learning target, we were trying to take the noticings that we have of the patterns going on in numbers and create ordered pairs out of them. But you can't just say that that whole list of numbers that we used is a graph, because do we have a y-axis and an x-axis yet? No. So before we move on to figuring out how to graph the patterns that we're noticing and recognizing, we need to remember how to plot a point on a grid. And this is what we've been working on for a whole week now. So hopefully we've got it sort of down in our brains a little bit at least. And if you are still confused, that is totally fine, fifth graders. I'm here to help you. So let's make sure if you have been having a hard time with this, listen up, okay? So when we want to plot a point on the grid, you need to first look at the x-axis number, which is the first number in the ordered pair. This is the ordered pair, by the way. All right, so this, the red number, is our ordered pair. And so I like to say you're going to run over 3 because that's our ordered pair for the x-axis. And then you're going to look at your y-axis and you are going to jump up 4 and plot your point there. So sometimes it's nice to give yourself reminders of, if you're going to run over 3, you give yourself a little tick mark here and then you jump up to the 4th spot. All right, so that's how we plot a point on the grid. Now, we're going to create a table that's going to fit into this graph that we just played with, okay? So, fill in the table using the add 3 rule. So this is just like the numbers that we were looking at before on the numerical patterns pages, except instead of having the numbers in a horizontal row, we're now filling in a vertical column for our table. So don't get thrown off by the way the numbers are going to be laid out. It's the exact same way we were doing it before. But instead of noticing the pattern or the rule, they're telling us the rule and we have to create the pattern. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to say 0 plus 3. And hopefully you can do that pretty quick. 0 plus 3 is 3. Then you're going to do 3 plus 3, and that is 6. And then you're going to do 6 plus 3, and that is 9. All right, so we have filled in the table using our add 3 rule. All righty. Now we're going to fill in the table using the multiply by 2 rule. So I want you to notice something before we start the second pattern in our table. Pattern number 1 for this column in our table has a totally different rule than pattern number 2 in the second column of our table. These 2 columns do not have the same rule, and that's okay. All right, so they're telling us that the rule for pattern number 2 is to multiply by 2 each time. So I'm going to multiply term number 1 by 2. That's going to get me 2. And then I'm going to do 2 times 2, and that'll get me 4. And then I'm going to do 4 times 2, and that will get me 8, not 6. Come on, I'll fix that. Just give me 1 second here. All right, Miss Bai went and fixed it. I'm guessing the people that made this PowerPoint thought that they suddenly switched to add 2 instead of multiply by 2, because 2 plus 2 could be 4 as well. But that's a whole other thing. We fixed it. 4 times 2 is 8, not 6. All right, so we have a completed table now. We've got this column here and this column here complete. We've followed the rules that they told us to fill in each column. All right, for our table. Now they want us to write ordered pairs from the corresponding terms. Now remember, these are corresponding terms. When they are right next door to each other, they're corresponding. Corresponding is like having a conversation or interacting with one another or influencing or having an effect on something or somebody else. So these two numbers, 0 and 1, they influence each other. And 3 and 2 influence each other. 6 and 4, maybe they're having a conversation. And 9 and 8, they're chit-chatting away too. They're corresponding terms. Okay? So we've got 0, 1, 3, 2, 6, 4, and 9, 8 that are corresponding terms. Now, I want you to think for a second. How does this translate to a graph or a coordinate plane? How am I going to put this onto a graph that has an x-axis and a y-axis? How am I going to do that? Well, you know what I'm thinking? The x-coordinates always come first. And so that means if I'm going to be taking these corresponding terms and turning them into an ordered pair or a coordinate pair, my x needs to come first and my y needs to come second. So these must be my x-coordinates, and these in pattern 2 must be my y-coordinates. And that means that these ordered pairs are going to be made up of these terms like we just talked about. And that's how I'm going to get to graph them. So if each one of these ordered pairs needs to go x, y, and the first column is my x-coordinates and the second column is my y-coordinates, I want you to try to finish this table on your own. Pause me now, and then when you're done, unpause and we will move on. Did you pause me yet? All right, so the first ordered pair is 0, 1, because our x-coordinate has to come first, and then our y-coordinate comes second. So we have 0, 1 first, 3, 2, 6, 4, and then 9, 8. All right. So now the last step, the last piece of the puzzle, the last thing in our learning target for today is to graph the ordered pairs. So we have each ordered pair from the table that we just finished, and I'm going to move these dots or coordinate points to match where they need to go on our graph. All right, so our first coordinate is 0, 1. Now, remember my fun little thing that I like to say is run and then jump. All right, so if my x-coordinate is 0, I don't have to run anywhere. I actually get to stay put. And then my y-coordinate is 1. So I just need to jump up 1. So I've now plotted my x-coordinates at the correct, or not my x-coordinate, I've plotted my ordered pair at the correct location based off of the ordered pair that I created from our table before. All right, my next ordered pair is 3, 2. So I'm going to run over 3, and then I need to jump up 2 because my y-coordinate is 2. So there's where my second point goes. All right, my third point is at 6, 4 on the coordinate plane. So that means I need to run all the way over to point 6 for the x-axis, and then I need to jump pretty darn high up to 4. All right, and I needed to get to 4 because that was my y-coordinate in my ordered pair. All right, and then last but not least, my last ordered pair is 9, 8. I need to plot my fourth point. I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to sprint all the way down to 9. And once I get to 9 on the x-axis, what am I going to do? I'm going to take a giant jump all the way up to point 8 on the y-axis, and that is where my fourth point will live at 9, 8 on the coordinate plane. So there is my finished graph, and my graph reflects my table that we created, or our table, I should say, that we created just a few minutes ago. So I think that's it. All right, so you guys are going to be working on tables, and you're going to be working at not only filling in the blanks like we did a couple slides ago when they tell you the rule, but you're also going to be working on determining what the pattern is or what the rule is when given a graph. when given a table, okay? And sometimes you're even going to be asked to figure out the rule and then create a new table with new numbers that follow the same rule. So I want you fifth graders to really make sure you understand this lesson that we've done today. You'll have one more video to watch on Khan Academy before you do your practice. You need to watch these videos before you practice, okay? If the practice is getting really confusing, please come to my office hours, okay? On today, which is Wednesday, I have office hours at 10 o'clock on Zoom. And on Thursday, if you're still confused, because we're going to be working on the same stuff again on Thursday, if you're still confused, I have office hours on Zoom at 1 o'clock. Please come to my office hours if you need my help. I can show you this PowerPoint. I can show you a different PowerPoint, and we can talk. I can help you with the work you're doing on your computer. The options are endless, okay? I miss you guys so much. Keep working hard. I'm so, so proud of how hard you guys are working. I wish so much that we could be learning together in the classroom, but I'm so happy that you guys are doing the best that you can with this opportunity to learn at home. So take care, keep working hard, and I'll see you in my office hours if you need my help.